one example, the 200, the oil revenue we put aside to start reducing our debt. We use our oil revenue to pay $336 million US. First time ever for us.
Okay.
We left 200 million. And we were targeting the bond, which His Excellency, during the time of His Excellency President Kufuor, was issued, the first bond which gave us access to the market. You have to behave well before you can go back to the market. So we realized in 2014 that, wait a minute, even if we win the elections, at the time we will say when we win the elections.
Okay. 3
years, and we've not paid down even a penny at that point.
Okay.
We're paying only interest. So we decided, however difficult the situation, gas supply and all those things, we started putting money aside. Then when we did 2015 bond, we used it to refinance 200 million. We used 200 million of the $1 billion to refinance that bond. Left with 550 million. I can assure you that all the 550 million was paid from money which we put in the sinking fund, despite all our difficulties. You can agree with me that if we are taking that 500 million and use it to reduce the deficit as we were used to doing, and we had even heated arguments with the IMF on that point. Why don't you use it? We said no. We have to be in the market again as a middle-income country to be able to borrow. So we can't be looking at the deficit, we must look at our debt.
I have some general questions I want to be asking you this morning.
So
before we go deep, delve into the economy in particular.
I know, so I'm giving you this particular example to show.
The word borrowing seems to be on the mouth of every finance minister, past or current. Borrowing, borrowing, borrowing. We keep borrowing. What is the reason for the borrowing, and why is it that we are not able to achieve what we borrow for?
That is the change we started. You see, there were former finance ministers. There were former, finance experts on the Constitutional Committee. And they put in the Constitution, Chapter 13, it wasn't compulsory but optional. They recommended two things. One, we should set up a sinking fund so that you can go to the market when you borrow, put money aside to pay down. You don't just keep refinancing, which was our habit. So they were talking from experience. We never instituted it until 2014 when we saw the Kufuor bond coming, and we realized, so we started it. So we paid, out of the 550, we provided all the money. In fact, there was 200 million plus, which the MPP used on October 4th, 2017. They can challenge it. They never mentioned it. That money to pay off the balance of the Kufuor bond, which gave them room to borrow. Now, the rationale for borrowing is this. It's like a household. You see, you can have income, right? Even if you're a manager. If you are, let's say, general manager for, let me say, pick one of your top people here. The income may be good, comfortable, at least pay school fees and other things. But to own a house, right, they cannot build a house immediately, so they have to negotiate a mortgage. God willing, they know if they keep a job at that level for 10 years, they will pay down the mortgage. 15 years, they will pay down the mortgage. Because their income, they know that if I put 20-25% aside, I can, pay a mortgage. Okay. You can go to your bank and get a loan to buy a car because you know your income. If they say take out, 30 million to buy, a new standard car, today, befitting a manager, few people, even though their income is high. And that's why every economy, the advanced countries, they have banks and others that give loan. So from household, let's come to government.
Okay.
From business. The last time I was here, this has been refitted.
That's right.
Right? I don't think they refitted it from income immediately.
They're
the accountants, they went for a loan.
They go for tomorrow.
Then it's up to Captain Smart to make sure that you get enough adverts, so that the loan
But
can
our
be paid
challenge,
back.
I decided not to ask follow-up questions on the few main questions I want to ask, but I'm tempted to do this.
Yes.
Government is actually struggling with the ordinary, borrowing from the local banks. You go, you borrow. Government come, they go, they borrow. So we, the ordinary, that would have to fall on the banks to get the money. Government is also chasing the same money with us. Interest rates so high. So even if I want to borrow, say 1 million Ghana cedis to do a project, if the value of the money is say 70%, by 2 months' time, the value of that same amount of money that I borrowed from the bank reduced to say 25-30%, all because prices of commodity, fuel, everything, boom, 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 without any recourse to the ordinary in society. I don't know if you have an answer to this.
No, yes, it's an important principle in finance and in economics, in managing the economy. That is why you have domestic borrowing and you have foreign borrowing.
Okay.
And that is why you need a fund, like the sinking fund. Let me come back to you, brought it, you know, to be paying down and respect the capital markets. So you can be going there to borrow. And then you earn more forex, you create self-financing like Terminal 3 because the airport tax that we use bundled to do Terminal 3 is forex.
Okay.
So you don't have to be depending. You are depending on the project now, right? So you are no longer depending on the budget. So the budget can then take loans, foreign loans to do schools and others without the burden of SOEs who cannot. If they don't pay me dividend, the principle we had is if you can't pay me dividend, pay for the cost of the project, right? So when you do that, then you have easier access to the capital markets. But to continue that access to the capital markets, you must be paying down so that the capital markets will respect you. And then your interest rate will start going down from 10% to 8% to 6%, you know, because you are behaving, right? Then your access to the external market, because most of the projects we are going to do will be in forex anyway. You know, all the things that we don't fabricate many of the things that were used for Terminal 3. We don't fabricate the things that are used for bridges and many things. A time will come when we have to start doing that. But you need money to do that. Private sector.
Why haven't you started years back? Nkrumah started,
let me answer
Buzia continued, and then during the Fourth Republic, all the governments we've had in the Fourth Republic decided not to go into industrialization. You decided to go into only borrowing.
No. Wait, let's finish. You know, let me just land on the.
It's as a result of just the point that you made.
It's related. Okay. But let me land on this very important point. So if you continue to behave, right, then your ratings go up. You see the importance of the ratings.
Okay.
It's not about you setting up your rating agency. You are in the capital markets. So Fitch will always be there. Whether you set up yours, whether EU sets up theirs or not, they'll be there. And it will take time to gain that respect that they have. If you set up a Ghana rating agency or an Africa rating agency, it will take, because they have been there for many, many years. Anyway, so when your ratings improve, your interest rate goes down. Right? And that's why they say some bonds can be investment grade, because they move from the B plus up into A. Okay. So you're able to borrow. If you're able to borrow softly, then you are not coming to the domestic market to borrow to finance your budget. You still borrow, but you depend less, right? So right now, since last year, we've not been able to go to the capital markets. So the trend the path we were creating with a sinking fund from one oil field, we had 3. We discontinued it. And then we went back and we were just refinancing. Refinancing means you go and borrow instead of using your own money to pay down. So you see, those golden years from 2017 to 2019, before COVID, what were we doing with the oil money?
Okay.
Remember again, when COVID struck, much of the money in the stabilization fund that we took to date, we have taken about 380 million. Most of it came from what we left. So what did we do? If you take 250 million, it started with 250 million, now it's gone up to 88 million. About 380 million. Okay. Right? What if with 2 oil fields we had been building it up? Maybe with COVID, we would have been able to take out 500, 750. 250 is 1/4 of the loan we took from IMF. 500 is half of the loan we took from IMF. If from your own oil revenue, you tighten your bet when output increase and when oil revenue price increased because we were below 50. It got up to 68, and today, and mind you, prices at 100 plus with one oil field was what we used to build stabilization, sinking fund, and all those things, infrastructure fund, and all those things. Why haven't we been able to continue with 3 oil fields? That is the question. Before COVID, this was some of us say, don't blame everything on COVID. It was good because you inherited 3 oil fields. You had 200 million to pay down the Kufuor bond. You had money in the stabilization fund to rely. But by the way, to get to where I was going, if you were even able to put, let's say 250 times 3, because somebody with one field put 250, you will say 3 fields. If you were able to increase that by 3, 750, that is how you win yourself from the IMF. Even if you are going to the IMF, you would have gone for 250 million. You wouldn't have gone for 1 billion. That is the process for winning yourself, the structures.
Okay, let me ask my final general question.